Grand Rising, and welcome to another segment of CLG View Point. I'm Lorraine Grais, and it is such an honor to have you here today. I've been away for a few days, enjoying the sunshine and doing a little bit of traveling, and took some great pictures and videos. Today I'll be introducing one of my videos at the end of this segment. Well, today it is Thursday, May 29th, 2025. In the Kingdom of Canada, it is Divina Anima, Day 3, Year 0035. Each segment, I'd like to start with a sage clearing. Some of you are well aware of what I do, but this is something new to some of you who aren't aware that we can clear negative energies out of our space, leaving nothing but positive energies. To do that, today I'm going to be using a sage stick. You light up the sage stick. I do like the smell of the sage. To all low energy entities, you are sent back to your perfect place. Only divine light and divine love is welcomed here. And so it is. Divine love and divine gratitude. Now, on to today, we'll be covering the benefits of dandelions. And international news, China claims to find fix of Hyperloop flaw that stalled Elon Musk's maglev dream. Local news, second restaurant fire in 24 hours triggers 2 alarm responses near Kennedy and Lawrence. Ottawa to cut 800 passport jobs by end of June. Union calls it disheartening. Former Victoria nurse reprimanded. Yes, reprimanded for inappropriate physical measures on the elderly. A temporary pipeline brings water to a northern Quebec Inuit community. Yes, after months without water, due to equipment failure and severe weather. Now onto the video, the benefits of dandelions. Dandelions, I use them quite often myself. Dandelion tea is quite delicious. And now on to China claims to find fix for Hyperloop flaw that stalled Elon Musk maglev dream. AI-controlled suspension smooths 1,000 km/h rides on China's vacuum tube maglev test line. Interested Engineering, written by Sujita Sinha. Updated May 28, 2025. Chinese scientists working on the world's first full-scale vacuum tube maglev test line claim they found a solution to a problem that has plagued ultra-high-speed travel concepts like Elon Musk's Hyperloop. Their study reveals that even tiny flaws, such as slightly uneven track coils or minor bridge deformations, can create violent turbulence inside a maglev pod. These jolts could turn a smooth, futuristic trip into a nightmare. Even in the near vacuum conditions required for high-speed transport, like in the Hyperloop. However, the Chinese team says they've managed to cut turbulence intensity nearly in half. That means extreme severe bumps are now reduced to being pronounced, but not unpleasant. The engineers behind the study work at the Datong test site in Shaanxi province, China's flagship maglev research center. The team is led by Zhao Ming from the Maglev and Electromagnetic Propulsion Division of China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation, CASIC, a state-owned defense and space contractor. Our research counted for track irregularities, vertical bending of bridges, and single frequency excitations induced by lateral irregularities in ground coils, wrote Zhao and his colleagues, as reported by the South China Morning Post. Violent vibrations at key speeds. To understand the core issue, the engineers ran detailed simulations using supercomputers backed by physical tests with scaled-down models. Their results uncovered that at high speeds, especially around 249 miles per hour and 373 miles per hour, the pods faced dangerous resonance. Using the 1940s era Sperling Index, a globally recognized scale for ride comfort, the team measured the discomfort passengers would feel. At 249 miles per hour, the vibration reached levels labeled as extremely unpleasant. At 373 miles per hour, the reading hit 4.2 on the Sperling Index, so intense that extended exposure would be harmful to humans. At the intended top cruising speed of 612 miles per hour, however, the vibrations dropped to a Sperling Index of 3.1, classified as barely tolerable. China's vision goes beyond the trains. While Elon Musk's Hyperloop concept hit roadblocks and officially ended its test track program in 2023, China is pushing forward. Beijing sees maglev technology not just as a new way to move people, but as a stepping stone to other major advances, including low-cost space launches. The Daytong facility reflects its ambition. Engineers there have already developed all airtight concrete tunnels and millimeter-precise tracked joints, hard-won milestones in maglev tech, as CNP reported. According to the paper, there are still hurdles ahead. The suspension system, while successful in lab tests, still needs to be scaled up for real-world use. Engineers must also be ensured it can handle emergencies such as sudden braking or unexpected obstructions. Now, onto the video.
That right now, China is developing a train capable of reaching speeds of up to 1,000 kilometers or 621 miles per hour. This train moves so fast that it could get you from New York to Los Angeles in just over 2 hours. Japan's famous bullet trains, Shinkansen, typically operate at speeds of around 200 miles or 320 kilometers per hour. And the fastest commercial maglev train currently in operation, the Shanghai maglev, reaches a top speed of 268 miles or 431 kilometers per hour. Now, imagine a train that more than doubles the speed, faster than many commercial airplanes, which cruise at about 575 miles or 925 kilometers per hour. Think about this. You could travel from New York to Chicago in about 90 minutes. Right now, that same trip takes you about 12 hours by train or 2 hours by plane. And that's not counting all the airport hassle. In our modern world, we're always looking for ways to make things faster, more efficient, and more connected. We've gone from horse-drawn carriages to cars, from propeller planes to jets, and now we're on the brink of something that could make even our fastest trains look like they're standing still. This is the T-Flight maglev vacuum train, a technological marvel that's going to rewrite everything we know about high-speed travel. But before we get into the details, first, let's take a quick look at how we got here. Trains have evolved significantly since their early days. When steam engines first appeared, reaching 48 kilometers or 30 miles per hour was considered fast. This was a big improvement over horse-drawn carriages. Cars followed, typically going 64 to 80 kilometers or 40 to 50 miles per hour, which seemed quite fast at the time. In 1964, Japan introduced its first bullet train, the Shinkansen, which could travel at about 210 kilometers or 130 miles per hour. This was a game changer, allowing people to cover long distances in much less time. These trains have since improved. with some models now reaching speeds of 320 kilometers or 200 miles per hour. More recently, in 2004, China unveiled its first commercial maglev train in Shanghai, hitting speeds of 460 kilometers per hour. At the time, this was revolutionary. The train connected Pudong International Airport to the city center in just 8 minutes, covering 30.5 kilometers of track. But for China, this was just the beginning. The Shanghai maglev, while impressive, was built using German technology. And if there's one thing we've learned about China over the past few decades, it's that they don't like relying on foreign tech for long. By 2016, China had developed its own maglev system in Changsha. This train was slower, running at about 100 to 120 kilometers per hour, but it represented something much more significant: China's ability to develop and build these systems independently. The Changsha line cost about $750 million to build, and while that might sound expensive, it's actually relatively modest compared to other transportation infrastructure projects. The line carries 363 passengers per train and has been running successfully for years now. Each of these developments marked a big step forward in speed for its time. They changed how we think about travel, commuting, and city planning. Cities that were once far apart became more connected, and commuting long distances became more possible. Seeing this progression helps us understand the new technology better. It shows how transportation has kept evolving, with each advance building on the last and expanding what we can do. Fast forward to today. China's Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation decided to step in, and they're not just trying to make slightly faster trains. They're aiming to completely revolutionize how we think about ground transportation. The new system they're developing targets speeds of 1,000 kilometers per hour. That's nearly the speed of sound. To achieve this, they're combining two technologies: magnetic levitation and vacuum tubes. Now, you might be thinking, wait a second, isn't this just like the Hyperloop that Elon Musk has been talking about? Well, yes and no. While both technologies aim to achieve super high speeds using low pressure tubes, they're actually quite different in how they work, but we'll get to that in a bit. Think about it this way. What's the biggest thing slowing down any vehicle? Air resistance. As you go faster, the air becomes like an invisible wall. That's why the current fastest trains top out around 500 kilometers per hour. Beyond that, you're just fighting against the air. This new high-speed train runs in a low vacuum environment. This dramatically reduces air resistance, allowing for those incredible speeds. So, what exactly is maglev technology? Well, maglev stands for magnetic levitation. It's a method of transportation that uses powerful magnets to lift and propel trains. Instead of using wheels on a track, these trains float on a magnetic field. The concept of magnetic levitation isn't exactly new. It's been around since the early 20th century, when Robert Goddard and Émile Bachelet first proposed using magnetic fields for transportation. But it's only in recent decades that we've seen it put into practice. Now, let's break it down how this system actually works. Traditional maglev trains float about 10 millimeters above the track. However, this new system, it levitates 100 millimeters. That's 10 times higher. This increased height reduces interference and allows for more stable operation at ultra-high speeds. The trains themselves are being built with carbon fiber materials to reduce weight while maintaining structural integrity. This isn't just about going fast, it's about going fast efficiently. The superconducting maglev system they're using is particularly clever. When certain materials are cooled to very low temperatures, they become superconductors, meaning they can conduct electricity with zero resistance. This makes the magnetic levitation much more efficient and stable. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds great on paper, but does it actually work? Well, they've already started testing, and the results are promising. In Shaanxi province, they've already built a 2-kilometer test track. Now, 2 kilometers might not sound like much, but it's enough to test all the critical systems. The test results aligned closely with their theoretical predictions. It's one thing to do the math and say something should work. It's another thing entirely to see it actually perform in the real world. During the test, they focused on several key aspects. First, controlled navigation. At such high speeds, even the slightest deviation could be catastrophic. The system needs to be able to keep the train on its exact intended path with incredible precision. Second, stable suspension. The train needs to maintain a consistent height above the track without any wobbling or fluctuations. This is crucial for passenger comfort and safety. Finally, safe stopping. Being able to go fast is one thing, but being able to stop safely is just as important. The test demonstrated that the system could bring the train to a controlled stop from high speeds. These tests have proven that the basic concept works. The next step is scaling it up to longer distances. Let's talk about what this means in practical terms. This kind of speed could create what economists call 1-hour economic circles, massive urban clusters where any 2 points are no more than an hour apart. This could completely change how people live and work. Imagine being able to live in one city and commute to work in another city hundreds of kilometers away. It could make long-distance relationships a whole lot easier too. Cities that are currently hours apart could become as connected as different neighborhoods in the same city. There are also some significant environmental benefits to consider. If these trains can replace short-haul flights, we could see a substantial reduction in carbon emissions. Air travel is a major contributor to greenhouse gases, so any technology that can offer a cleaner alternative is worth paying attention to. To put this into perspective, a typical short-haul flight might emit around 150 to 200 grams of CO2 per passenger kilometer. In contrast, even conventional high-speed rail emits only about 20 to 30 grams. Maglev vacuum trains, being even more efficient, could potentially lower this even further. But let's pump the brakes for a second. As cool as all this sounds, there are some significant challenges to overcome. For one, the infrastructure costs are enormous. Building low vacuum tubes over long distances isn't cheap, and integrating this system with existing rail networks is a complex task. To give you an idea, the cost of building conventional high-speed rail lines can range from $17 million to $170 million per kilometer, depending on the terrain and other factors. A maglev system in a vacuum tube would likely be even more expensive. We're talking potentially hundreds of billions of dollars for a single long-distance line. Safety is another crucial consideration. At these speeds, even tiny issues could have serious consequences. The emergency systems need to be absolutely foolproof. It's worth noting that China isn't the only country working on this technology. Japan has been developing its own superconducting maglev system, the Chuo Shinkansen, which is designed to run at speeds up to 505 kilometers or 313 miles per hour. While not as fast as the proposed Chinese system, it's still a significant step forward and is actually under construction, with plans to connect Tokyo and Nagoya by 2027. In the United States, several companies are working on Hyperloop technology, which shares some similarities with the Chinese maglev system. While progress has been slower, there have been successful tests, and several states are considering Hyperloop projects. The main difference between Musk's Hyperloop and China's T-Flight lies in their design and goals. Both are high-speed transportation concepts, but they take different approaches. The Hyperloop aims for speeds of 1,200 kilometers or 760 miles per hour using pods in a low-pressure tube, while the T-Flight targets 1,000 kilometers or 621 miles per hour using maglev technology in a tube that doesn't need to be near vacuum. The Hyperloop is still mostly on the drawing board. Even Virgin Hyperloop gave up on passenger transport, while China's building on their experience with maglev trains. While similar projects have grabbed headlines in the other parts of the world, China's approach of evolutionary development, starting with conventional maglev and gradually pushing the boundaries, might prove more successful. So, what do you think? Are you ready for a world where you can zip between cities at the speed of sound? Or does the idea of traveling that fast make you a bit nervous?
Personal thoughts. So amazing. Could this be the trains of the future for the whole world? The transportation technology is definitely moving fast. Any further information on technology in the Kingdom of Canada can be found under thekingdomofcanada.ca for natural law. Now, on to local news. Second restaurant fire in 24 hours. Triggers 2 alarm response near Kennedy and Lawrence. CP24 News reported by Steve Ryan, May 28, 2025. Emergency crews remain on the scene following a 2-alarm blaze at a restaurant near Kennedy Road and Lawrence. It's the second fire in the area in just 24 hours. I have 2 videos to show you. The first one is courtesy of CP24 News.
At the scene of a 2-alarm fire at a restaurant near Kennedy and Lawrence today. That's where the second restaurant fire in the same area in an almost 24-hour span happened. We're going to go live now to CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan, who is at the scene with the details in terms of what we know so far in this investigation. Steve?
Lindsay, Toronto Fire tell us that they responded to this 2-alarm blaze at approximately 3:30 this morning. Very dangerous situation for Toronto Fire. When they arrived on scene, the roof actually collapsed within, so they had to go from an offensive posture to a defensive posture because of the fact that the roof had now fallen inside of the building. So the fire is now out. Toronto Police are holding the scene, and this will be an investigation being conducted by the Ontario Fire Marshal's Office. I'll explain to you on the other side of this clip why I say that, but here is the Toronto Fire who we heard from earlier on today with regards to this event. Let's hear what he said.
Approximately about 3:30 last night, we received calls about fire inside the store. Our crews arrived finding a heavy fire inside. That quickly called for a second alarm. Stated a second alarm. We had some issues with crews around the roof, and the roof was compromised. So we had to go from offensive to defensive strategy, and we had to pull off. So the roof collapsed, and we're just dealing with some overhaul at the time.
Just before our live hit, Lindsay, our colleague Sean Leathong and I from CTV, we viewed a surveillance video. We're going to have that video sent to the studio once we get it. And on that video, it clearly shows 2 suspects getting out of the vehicle about 10 minutes before the fire was started. Those 2 suspects have canisters in their hands. They appear to smash the window, spray some fluid inside of the business, and then they toss what looked like a Molotov cocktail inside of the business, and then you just see the whole thing go up in smoke. So this video the Toronto Police have as well, so this will be part of their investigation, and the video is pretty clear. So once they see the video, once the video is shown, you will see the description of the vehicle, and the suspects are wearing dark clothing, but the vehicle may be recognizable to those that know of it. So we'll bring that to you hopefully in the next half hour and 45 minutes.
Absolutely.
So it is an arson, and of course arsons are mandated by the Ontario Fire Marshal's Office. So it'll be their investigation at some point in time, but police will continue holding the scene while the investigation goes on. So back to you.
Now on to the
Fires in less than a week's time have put some Scarborough residents on edge.
Nervous? What else? I don't know.
All of them affecting restaurants within the same area around Kennedy and Lawrence Avenue East, but police say this one, which began early Tuesday morning, doesn't appear to be connected. 2 other fires happening early Friday and Saturday morning are being linked.
It's alleged that 2 masked suspects broke in, set a fire using accelerant, and fled the scene in a silver SUV.
Surveillance footage shows the moment when the suspects allegedly lit Saturday morning's fire, which ended up gutting the location. A day before, another restaurant nearby was also targeted, according to police.
Thankfully, several employees who were inside at the time were able to exit safely and were not injured.
Omkar Belawade says his staff got out the back door after the suspects forced their way in.
They broke the glass, they came with the gasoline cans or something, and then they poured the gasoline everywhere. So when they saw staff coming in, staff coming from the back, so they just lit the fire and they went off.
The ward's councillor says the 2 restaurants under investigation are both owned by the same individual, who also owns other properties in the area.
Based on the discussion I've had with the police, that actions have been taken to ensure that those particular places are being looked at to prevent further fires.
Police have released images of the suspects in the second arson who appeared to be driving a silver SUV. Anyone with information or surveillance footage is being asked to call police or Crime Stoppers. Matthew Bingley, Global News.
personal thoughts. Arsonists targeting restaurants in Toronto. Are these paid arsonists? Only a thorough forensic investigation under natural law in the Kingdom of Canada should be actioned quick, fast, and in a hurry. Ottawa to cut 800 passport office jobs by the end of June. Union calls it disheartening. CTV News, May 28, 2025. Ottawa plans to cut 800 passport office jobs by June's end. Union President Alicia Kang warns of delays, service impact, and how the union plans to respond. And on to the video.
And with me now is Alicia Kang, National President of the Union of National Employees. It represents passport officers, among many others. Alicia, thank you very much for being here. What is your immediate reaction to the federal government's decision to cut 800 passport office jobs? Do you think this is justified?
Well, it's disheartening. Obviously, we've had passport crises in the past in terms of being able to get services to Canadians. And really, what you're looking at is job cuts of the most vulnerable public servants, mostly terms, precarious workers. And you're looking at people who are making under $50,000 a year. So it seems to me like Mark Carney is, looking at fiscal responsibility on the backs of the least paid public servants in the public service. And so I'm not sure that Canadians are going to continue to get the services that they so need to be able to get their passports through these cuts.
How do you anticipate these job cuts will affect passport processing times and service delivery?
Well, we've continued to see these long lineups, even post-pandemic, and I don't see this helping us get the passports any quicker. I actually see there being a slowdown, particularly when we return to the fall, which is the beginning of the busiest season in the passport processing system. And so I think that Canadians are really going to be impacted in terms of long lineups. And that also impacts the members at the end of the day that are left behind having to service Canadians who think that it's, there's often this perception that we're not processing things fast enough, but oftentimes it's because we don't have the actual capacity and the surge capacity to be able to serve Canadians properly.
Have you received any indication that the employees facing the cuts will get any sort of compensation?
So no, they don't. They are not going to get any compensation. When terms are terminated, they get 30 days notice. And from those 30 days, their terms are cut off. So you're really looking at people that as of, the 27th of June won't have employment. And, that obviously impacts people going to unemployment, which is, again, another way that we're going to have to support them through our tax dollars. So at least they were providing services to Canadians through the jobs that they were doing. Now they're not going to be providing services to Canadians, but are going to increase our unemployment numbers. So I find the economic viability of these cuts quite concerning from my perspective in terms of how this is going to help the growth of the Canadian economy. But, I think that the government has different people advising them on how to go about these cuts.
So how do you plan to respond?
Well, I think, from our perspective, we're going to continue to make the public aware of, what these impacts are going to be on them. We're going to continue to support our unionized members. And obviously, from our perspective, we want good public services for Canadians. Public servants, and especially since the pandemic, have definitely seen an increase in lack of civility from the Canadian public in terms of how they interact with them and the expectations of the speed at which they get the services. And I think this is just going to slow it down. So we're going to continue to inform the public about what these cuts mean and support our members through this process. And we're going to, obviously prepare ourselves to pivot in terms of how we do negotiations.
All right, Alicia, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time today. That is Alicia Kang, National President of the Union of National Employees.
My personal thoughts. You think that we have too many government officials on the payroll? Under natural law in the Kingdom of Canada, there is a 90% cut on all government employees, including all government officials, all officials, federally, provincially, and municipalities. And what do you think? More information can be found on thekingdomofcanada.ca. Yes, thekingdomofcanada.ca. Former nurse reprimanded for inappropriate, yes, inappropriate physical measures on elderly patients. CTV News by Adam Chan, May 23, 2025. A former nurse from Victoria was reprimanded for several issues that reportedly occurred between April and September 2024. During that time, the BC College of Nurses and Midwives, BCCNM, says that Melanie Piskia used inappropriate physical measures on vulnerably elderly patients to gain their compliance, and also had issues related to safe medication administration practices. In Notice Tuesday, the BCCNM said it had entered a consent agreement with Piscia, who is currently not practicing. If she does return to nursing, she has voluntarily agreed to several conditions with the BCCNM, including working under supervision for a set period of time, not being the sole nurse on the unit, not supervising other health officials, and not providing orientation to new staff. The consent agreement also includes remedial education, particularly related to ethics and professionalism, geriatric care, medication administration, documentation, and gentle, persuasive approaches. There will also be a note saying her registration was reprimanded and suspended for using inappropriate physical measures with vulnerable elderly residents to gain their compliance. Nurses are accountable for their nursing decisions, actions, and professional conduct, said the BCCNM. In a notice Tuesday, nurses must ensure they meet BCCNM practice standards, providing safe nursing care to clients. Nurses are expected to care for all patients ethically and to respect and protect patients' worth and dignity, the college said. My personal thoughts. Have you heard of other stories of the elderly being mistreated? It's criminal. I've heard some stories myself. So I think that a full forensic investigation on government and private care home facilities on the quality of care by caregivers to the elderly. Are they being taken care of properly? Have they had their medications administered by proper methods? This should be done Canada-wide under natural law, quick, fast, and in a hurry. Do you think that a full investigation should be done? And so it is. Well, CTV News, temporary pipeline brings water to a northern Quebec Inuit community. Yes, after months without it, that's water, due to equipment failure and severe weather, reported by Genevieve Bouchemin, May 24, 2025. Now, on to the video.
Through a temporary pipeline to a northern Quebec village. The precious resource cut off for months after an equipment failure in hazardous weather conditions. CTV's Quebec Bureau Chief Genevieve Bouchemin now with how the resilient Inuit community is handling the hardship.
It is May 5th today.
In this Inuit village on the northeast coast of Hudson Bay, the elements rule over the pace of life. But a water system breakdown in Pervernituk has renewed calls for governments to pour more resources into basic needs in the north.
I heard of families that because of the water, they just don't have the ability to flush their toilets. And when you're living with one bathroom and 6-7 people in the house, it's not conditions in which we in Canada, anybody in Canada, should not have to endure.
Alicia Grais was born and raised just outside Montreal. This school year, though, she headed north to the village of 2,100 people after graduating and taking her first teaching job.
None of it prepares you for the realities that the North, the beautiful people that they are, the resilience that they have in these situations,
In mid-March, a broken protection system led the pipeline connecting the pump station to the water treatment plant to freeze. Water had to be trucked in, sewage trucked out. This during blizzards on nearly impassable roads.
5 water trucks, 5 sewage trucks. But these things in operation break every minute.
The parts to fix them, at times slow to be flown in from the south. The town declared a state of emergency, and Canadian Rangers, part of the Army Reserve, were brought in to distribute water, provide support. This as hygiene, care for seniors, fighting fires became major issues.
We need to work together to establish what went wrong and how we can be better for the future, because this is not acceptable. Seeing families without water for weeks.
Though governments have promised to do better to provide clean running water to communities in the north for years. For now, in Prevernatuck, a temporary pipeline has been installed.
It's like a hose on the land for about 3 kilometers. So it has to be protected. We cannot cover it because then it will be blocked.
Local authorities ended the school year early and abruptly. To ease the pressure on the community, Grais had just a couple of days to pack up and return home.
I know that I'm not coming back next year, and so not being able to finish out that year and say that goodbye the way I thought it would happen. Of course, the people are very adaptable. We are very rigid in our ways.
But there are conditions, she says, no one in Canada should have to adapt to. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
My personal thoughts. It is absolutely wonderful, finally, that the people in the Inuit community have received water. Even though it's a 3-kilometer hose, at least they have water. Months without water. Can you imagine? No water to flush toilets, to do laundry, or clean water to drink, or to have a warm bath for months. And it all has to be trucked in. And a state of emergency was enacted. It went that far. Why did the political officials who live in warm houses with a tremendous amount of water not do their due diligence to provide water to the Inuit community? Not do their due diligence. This is an embarrassing travesty. The political officials promised this community for years to have water, years. And they failed the people. In today's new technology on infrastructure, the political officials have the funds under natural law to make sure that all communities throughout the Kingdom of Canada have water and all their basic needs met, which also includes homes for the homeless. Do you think that this warrants a full forensic investigation to find out why the people in the Inuit community had to endure this unfair hardship of living in their community without water for such a long time? What do you think? I am Cindy Lorraine, Grais of CLG View Point, and I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for you being here with me today. Please share this forum. And I'm going to end off with a beautiful video that I produced of Elk Falls on Vancouver Island. And I wrote a little quote with it. Enjoy the sounds of Elk Falls. Meditate and relax. Have a truly wonderful day. See you on Divina Anima, Day 3, Year 0035 in the Kingdom of Canada. And that is Friday, May 30th, 2025. And see you again.